name is Corey Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Events and Affinity Programs here in the Office of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving. We're excited to partner today with Falk College of Sport to bring you this program. Now I would like to introduce you to our moderator this afternoon who's joining us, Jessica, who's an assistant professor in the Department of Nutrition and Food Studies. Take it away, Jessica.
Great. Thanks, Corey, and thanks everyone for joining us. It's really great to see so many alumni and students who are interested in sports nutrition. I know some of you know me already, but I'm Jessica Gary. I'm an assistant professor in our Department of Nutrition and Food Studies. I'm also an SU alum. I earned my PhD from the Exercise Science Department. Currently, I teach and do research around sports nutrition. My specific interest is in effects of low energy availability on exercise performance among female athletes, but we also just wrapped up a study involving our men's crew team that one of our students who's on the crew team did for his honors thesis. Just to share a little bit about our department, we currently offer undergraduate majors and minors in both nutrition and nutrition science. For those interested in becoming a registered dietitian nutritionist, like Maggie and myself, we now have a master's degree that fulfills all the requirements to sit for the registration exam. We also have a master's degree in nutrition science for people pursuing research. And speaking of research, we have some great facilities to support our faculty and students, including our Nutrition Assessment, Counseling, and Education Center here in the Falk building. We have a second lab in the Ernie Davis building, and we have an animal lab facility in the CST building. And, all of this research, especially student research, is not possible without support. So we'd really like to thank anyone who's made a donation in the past. If you would like to support our department and specifically student research, you can donate to our Nutrition Discretionary Fund. And these donations support not only supplies and materials for the student projects, but it also supports students going on to attend professional conferences to share their work. So a quick plug for another upcoming event that our department is hosting. We are bringing Dr. Patrick Wilson to campus this year for our annual Ann Selkowitz Lit Memorial Lecture. He'll be speaking about gut health for athletes on Tuesday, April 1st at 5:30 p.m. in 200 McNaughton Hall. And now I'm really excited to introduce our speaker for today, Maggie McCrudden. I had the pleasure of crossing paths with Maggie during her time as an undergrad when I was in my PhD program, and I was also an adjunct instructor. We kind of made our way through anatomy and physiology together. So Maggie is a 2014 graduate of the Falk College of Sport and Human Dynamics. She actually spent this past summer in Paris serving as a food and nutrition expert and registered dietitian for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. She, in her current role, provides nutritional support for elite athletes, ensuring they get, the right food and education to maintain their peak performance. And Maggie says her foundation in sports nutrition was built here at Syracuse between her education in the nutrition program and her time as a collegiate athlete on the women's rowing team. So I'm really excited for this full circle moment of welcoming Maggie back as an alum and to talk about her experience as a sports dietitian. So take it away, Maggie.
Yay. Thank you, Jessica. I'm just going to get my slides up and then I'll do just get this share. Boom. Please work. We practice this and it works. Okay. Is that right? Does this? Okay. There we go. This looks right, correct? Sweet. Okay. So like Jessica said, I'm Maggie McCrudden. I graduated in 2014, which is a whopping 11 years ago, but it feels like just yesterday. I was on campus. So I actually followed in my sister Natalie's footsteps. So she graduated in 2012 from the engineering school, and she was also a women's rower. So I did follow in her footsteps. If she's on this call, hey Nat. And I just want to say that we both feel so privileged to be on that women's rowing team, and also the connections that we've made at Syracuse, and then also that continued on in our years in New York City. So we have like a huge network of Syracuse alum that we love to hang out with, count on for, watching sports games, but also for career development and networking. I also met my now husband at Syracuse. So my freshman year, I was in the Lawrence Hall and he was in Sadler, which is right next door. He's also was a men's rower. And he asked me, sorry, I'm just going to read this part. he asked me, since we're talking about athletics today, if there's anyone in the athletic department on the call, we would like to negotiate. We are having a baby next month, so we're looking to see where she might go to school. So if anyone's interested in a future athlete, you have my contact. But in all seriousness, my 4 years at Syracuse were incredible, very monumental in my career growth. I think a lot of my connections to the athletes that I work with today it's so helpful that I was an actual athlete myself. I competed a little bit with Team USA rowing wise, but it just helps me connect and understand how busy they are, how tired you are. And then like the timing, it's such a hard schedule to manage as an athlete. So having that time at Syracuse, being a student athlete, really helps me connect now. And I also would like to thank all my previous professors that might be on this call or listening to the recording. I know I was definitely a sleep deprived student athlete doing a lot of training. So I appreciate all the extra hours you put in with me and all the other student athletes that you do that for, because I know I'm not the only one that, got all the benefits from all the tutoring and extra hours that you spent with us. So Syracuse will always have a special place in my heart. And I'm very thankful for this opportunity. Thanks to all the alumni engagement people who set this up. But okay, so now we'll get into it. So food is fuel. And like Jessica said, my current position is the food and nutrition dietitian at the Lake Placid Olympic Paralympic Training Center, which is a mouthful. I'm one of 9 dietitians that work for the USOPC. So we're spread out between summer, winter, and para sports. So I'm stationed at the training center in New York. So if anyone's in the area for skiing or hiking in the summer, come for a tour, ask for me, and I'll give you the tour. Okay, so this is me in Paris this summer, and now we're gearing up for the Milan Cortina Games. Ooh. So why would we want to eat like an Olympian? That's kind of what we're going to go over today. And my opinion is like, why not? Why not fuel like an Olympian? So Paralympic and Olympic athletes, their job is to perform well on the biggest stage, but their focus is on making sure that they're getting quality nutrition to optimize their performance. But that same principle can be carried into all of our day-to-day lives. Even if you're not an extremely active person, you're not, doing a road race or training for a 5K, 10K, whatever athletic challenge you're up for. Or like Jessica, when she was my anatomy phys teacher, she was training for like a massive hike. So she was always wearing her boots to break them in, which I always thought was so cool, and training on the treadmill because it's hard to train in Syracuse in the winter. And then fueling well just helps with overall energy, focus, and recovery, which parents, having a 9-to-5 job, doing life, we all want more energy. We all want to focus better. We all want to sleep well. So this guy, Snoop Dogg, did a lot of content this summer with the athletes, and he was phenomenal. Seeing him with the athletes was really fun because he really, he was there for media, but he also did a lot of like a day in the life as an athlete. So he raced in the training center that I was stationed at, which I can talk about later, but he, was on the track, in the pool. He was doing a lot of the competition stuff that the athletes were showcasing for media. But he also ate in the dining halls with the athletes too. So during that time, and he should continue if he was on this call, or maybe we can send him the recording, but he should be aiming for the same high quality, nutrient dense foods, hydration, balanced meals and snacks, and meeting his energy needs. All right, so the basics of a nutrient dense diet. It's really hard to do a nutrition presentation without like kind of hitting that foundation. So on the right side of the screen, we have our performance pyramid. And a lot of the work I do with athletes is on that base layer. Like athletes come in from different levels of education. Some of them also had studied nutrition. They were their own guinea pigs like I did when I was in college. But the basics is if we don't meet our total energy needs and our hydration needs, there's no reason for me to be talking to you about supplements because we're not there yet. We need to make sure that we're getting enough calories and energy into our body and hydrating well before we make that next step up. So high quality. those are foods that just have a little bit more nutrients per calorie. So this rainbow I put throughout the slides because I'm going to encourage eating a variety of fruits and vegetables for all the benefits that that provides for us. Okay, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. So our macronutrients. There's 3 macronutrients. I'm sure you've all heard of them before, but they're carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So carbohydrates for an athlete are our main energy fuel. So success without carbohydrates it's hard. It's you don't see it very often. You see a lot of people trying it. For the athletic community, it is our main source of energy. And general population, we all need carbohydrates. 45 to 65% of our total calories should be coming from carbs. So they maintain intensity, prevent muscle breakdown. They assist in hydration as well. So we hear the term quick energy, and we'll go over this a little bit later with our nutrition timing, but that's like the white breads, pastas, pretzels, fruits, honey, agave, apple sauces. Those are quick energy, and that's because as we eat those foods, they start breakdown right on our tongue. So it's easier for it to get right into our bloodstream to give you that burst of energy. And then the other types of carbohydrates are like the ones with a little bit of fiber, so they keep you full longer. So that's like the whole grains, bran cereal, brown rice, wheat bread, wheat pasta, oats. So those keep you fuller for longer. And that's our main source of energy because we want to be full for the full day and fuel ourselves for the full day. So then I just have some images of what carbs are. 1 serving of a carb is 15-ish grams, like as a general rule of thumb. So if I ever make a meal plan for an athlete and I say half a cup of pasta, that's interchangeable with 1/3 of a cup of rice. So where you get your carbs is up to you, and pretty interchangeable for me. We do want to monitor how many of the like refined grains we're having, but generally like whole food wise, if you want to put sweet potato today versus potato or rice, because it makes, you like rice. So then we add more rice into your diet. Protein. So this is probably the most enjoyed macronutrient by the athletic community, or at least in my opinion. I do see a lot of athletes like almost like dry scooping protein powder because they like have this idea that they need more and more and more. And like the pictures on the right, that plate of chicken, I feel like I see that all the time with some of the athletes that I work with. They just want the protein. And my job is to encourage the carbohydrate and fat. But so protein is important for athletic performance because it is helping those muscles recover from training and also get stronger. It also helps with metabolism, hormone balance, and immune function. So the building blocks of proteins are the amino acids. So 9 of them come from the diet. So that's when I say eat a variety of protein sources, especially if you're a plant-based athlete or a person that eats more plant-based foods. That's like no animal product. Those products might not have all 9 essential amino acids, so you want to eat a variety of them. And then 11 of them our body makes on their own because our body's amazing. And protein is effective as we spread it out throughout the day. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to talk about how we want to balance our meals, and that really means having carbs, proteins, and fats. So when we eat a carb and a protein together, it slows down digestion. So we're feeling more full throughout the day. It aids in reducing like blood sugar spikes. So if you ever feel like, wow, I'm really lethargic, or I'm tired, or my energy level just kind of drops throughout the day, maybe thinking back to the previous meals, did I have a carb with a protein? And that might be a simple solution for you to pair those up together and give you more sustained energy. And then our daily needs, we need about 10 to 35% of our total calories from protein. And a lot of times athletes that I work with are getting 50% of their calories from protein, which we'll talk about later, but displaces carbohydrates, which reduces the amount of total energy that their body's getting, or easier energy. And then the timing of protein we'll go over again later in this presentation, but it is important for protein to be consumed after a workout within 30 to 60 minutes. But also, if you miss that window, that's okay. We're going to continue to recover for the next 24 to 48 hours. And fats, our last macronutrient. So fats are extremely important in the diet, and they sometimes get a bad rep, or people are scared of eating fat, which shouldn't be the case because it's so necessary for the body. Supports immune function, body temperature, nerve trends, nerve functioning, and vitamin absorption, which is huge. And then long lasting energy. So if you're a long distance runner or doing a long bike ride or planning a large hike, having fat in your diet will keep you full longer and giving you a steady flow of energy. So it keeps you full. That helps. So there's types of fats. The unsaturated fat is pretty much liquid at room temperature. So if you're looking at oils, those are unsaturated fats. And these are the beneficial fats that we're aiming for more in our diet. Eggs and seeds, nuts, those are all nice sources of unsaturated fat. And then saturated fats are the solid at room temperature. So when you're looking at a cut of meat, that marbling of meat, of fat, the white surrounding the steak is saturated fat. The skin on any sort of animal product is going to have saturated fat. Margarine, fried foods, processed pastries that come from like a little baggie, and even the made ones because they're going to be made with butter, biscuits. So just monitoring how much saturated fat you have and aiming to cook with more oils and such will help you balance that out. And then our total needs, because there's 9 calories per gram, 20 to 35% of our daily calories should be coming from fats. But that's just about a teaspoon of oil is 5 grams. Okay, so the core of an Olympic diet, another peer stage of that pyramid, is meeting our energy needs, that base level. And I just like this image because it just shows a bunch of different body types. So there's no one answer to how much do I need. Everyone needs something different. Even if there's like 2 identical twins that are identical, but they live different lives. They do different activity throughout the day. One walks to work, one doesn't. One lives in a cold spot, one lives in a hot. Like all these different daily changes are going to impact how much we need per day. So like different sports need different amounts of energy needs. So endurance sports, so like the biathletes that I work with, they're doing 2 long sessions a day. They're going to need more carbohydrates versus the bobsled skeleton athletes that are explosion. So they're like quick 20 seconds worth of work and all about speed. They're going to need a little bit less carb and more protein because they want to be as strong as possible to push this 200 plus sled. The season of competition changes. So how much you eat throughout the year is going to go up and down based on how much exercise you're doing, the length of exercise like I talked about, and then the things that we all have that are different. Our heights are different, our weights are different, our genders are different, our ages are different, and then what are our goals? All these things impact how much we need to eat per day. And it's hard to kind of individualize that for like a group setting, but you can reach out to a dietitian or look at your plate. So this is a common image that we use with athletes, and I have them posted all over the building. In different times of year, I swap, or like different competition times, I'll swap the pictures to make sure the athletes are eating the appropriate amount of carbohydrates to meet their needs during a training session. So we have this plate on the left, which is our easy training day. So that could be, you have one technical training day, it's a recovery day, you're doing lifting, like a light lift or yoga, something moderate, like not super, super intense. So half the plate is fruits and vegetables, a quarter is protein, and a quarter is carbohydrate. And then the moderate day, maybe 2 sessions, but one of them is really light, and then one of them is a typical training session. So we increase the amount of carbohydrates to have, because again, carbs are giving us our preferred source of energy for our brains and our body to function. So we want more carb. the amount of vegetable goes down, but that doesn't mean like you can't have a side salad or extra fruit on the side. And then 1/4 of the plate consistently is that protein. And then on a hard day, we increase the amount of carbs that we're having to half the plate. Because again, we need that energy for that performance. So those might be two longer sessions like the biathletes I talked about. Pretty much all of their plates are half the plate is carb, 1/4 protein, and 1/4 veg. So hydration, another pillar, base pillar of the pyramid for performance. So being hydrated is very important. So hydration delivers oxygen, blood, and just fluid throughout your body to your muscles, pumping. It helps your heart pump, flushes out byproducts. And if you're not doing that, it can impair your recovery. It lubricates joints, moistens tissues, eyes, nose, and mouth, which is really important this season because of colds. So if you're dehydrated, you're more likely to get, and it impairs your immune system. And also for athletes, the lubrication of joints and soft tissue is really important because our soft tissues are like sponges. So if you're dehydrated, you're going to have like kind of like a rough sponge versus like if you have the fluid that you need in your body, your sponge is soft, so it's less likely to tear or cause injury. And it regulates your heart rate and body temperature via sweat. So there's the signs of dehydration, which we all share with the athletes. So lack of concentration, fatigue, headaches, muscle cramps, trouble tolerating heat, like feeling really overheated, slower recovery rates, a higher heart rate. So all these things, if you wear a wearable watch, you can see that when I don't have any water, maybe my heart rate's a little bit higher at rest. And things that we can do is, everyone loves the urine chart. Or if this is your first time seeing it, you look at the right, I have it starred, the hydrated, it's like a light lemonade color. So you want to monitor the color of your urine. If you're seeing that like severely dehydrated or significantly dehydrated, you need to go start to think about your hydration plan throughout the day. Yeah, obviously in the morning you have a darker urine because you were sleeping and not hydrating throughout the night. But throughout the day, it should go to that light yellow color. And then also gauging your thirst. So if you're feeling really thirsty, that's a great sign that you're probably dehydrated. And it's, so for the athletes, is something that I have to bring up a lot, is that it takes about 24 hours for your body to regain its hydration status. So when athletes are traveling and they have really, really long days of travel, like right now, our luge team is coming back from China. And to come to Lake Placid is a small town, and it is a challenge to get here from anywhere. But from China, it takes over 35 hours to get here. So I can count on a lot of dehydrated athletes coming in because it is hard to hydrate in an airport for 35 hours and car rides and such. So it will take them over 24 hours to regain that fluid balance after this dehydrated period. So more ways to maintain your hydration. Carry a water bottle. Like I have mine with me at my desk pretty much all the time. Set some goals around hydration. Start the day before your coffee, have some water or have juice, have herbal teas or any sort of tea that you like. Eat fruits and vegetables if you're really like a water hater. Have, fruits and vegetables have higher contents of water. So we want to include those into our diet. In the winter months, have some veggie soups. Okay. Oh, and that last image was just our sweat that showed that if you're a very heavy sweater, you might need to replace some of the fluid in your diet with some sodium versus just water to help that fluid stay in the body. And then micronutrients, that's a bit up on this pyramid. So again, we want to make sure that we're meeting our energy needs, and then we can fine tune our micronutrients. So with the athletic community, it's mostly, I will very rarely suggest a supplement of iron unless I actually see a lab indicating low iron. So these micronutrients in general, they provide the body with essential nutrients, but they don't provide energy. So when we're eating whole foods like this rainbow again, we're getting these vitamins and minerals. So the fat soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, they get stored in the fats. There is an upper limit. So when you're overeating vitamin A, it will get stored in the body versus the water soluble vitamins. You'll just have expensive pee if you're eating an extensive amount of a certain food or taking a supplement, you'll pee it out. And then the minerals, these are just the top minerals that I go over with athletes based on hydration, immune health, iron for carrying oxygen throughout the body, and then the risks of low iron in athletic performance and just general health, and calcium for bone health. After an injury, we do review how much calcium is being consumed to make sure that our bones are recovering and healing. So just again, food is fuel, but it's also functional. So making sure we're eating a variety of fruits and vegetables till we get all the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant-rich foods that we might need. So athletes are always gonna have some inflammation, but we wanna stay away from chronic inflammation, which as the general population, we might be facing that. So eating those fruits and vegetables, whole foods is gonna help prevent or lessen the effect of inflammation. So two anti-inflammatory foods that we offer a lot is in the athletic community is curcumin. It's just like turmeric. It's a powerful anti-inflammatory food. And then tart cherry juice is very common in the athletic community. So you can either do like a concentrate or a juice, and it also may aid in a little bit of sleep. So these two slides, I'm just going to give you as an encouragement to eat a variety of foods, whole foods. And then gut health is another functional thing that I talk to the athletes about a lot, especially during the illness time of year, which is winter. And most of the athletes that I'm working with are winter athletes. So the gut is such a cool topic to think like to study and also just support. So there's like 1 trillion bacteria in there. So we want to support the good bacteria. So eating those probiotic rich foods. So those are the items on the right side of that graphic that I had made for an athlete. So kombucha, sauerkraut, Greek yogurt, or any yogurt has probiotics in it, kefir. And if you were one of the lucky ones who didn't get neurovirus this year, I am envious of you because having it while expecting it was a very humbling experience. But I have my husband and I still on the kefir smoothie each day to help us regain that good bacteria in our guts. And then prebiotics are basically the food for probiotics. So those are carbohydrates, like a fiber that gives that probiotic something to kind of eat off of. So we're supporting the probiotics in our gut. Okay, so how do we differ from athletes? So now this is like the more fun part. So we differ just on the quantity of foods that we need, just based on our energy expenditure throughout the day. Most of us are, working somewhat of a desk job. And then our nutrient timing, not to say we, don't need to time our food the same way as an athlete. If you're an active person, it's just not as high of a priority for the general population. And supplements, again, it's not a huge priority for us, but we'll get into that. So quantity of foods. So this choose my plate image on the left side of the screen is what our nutrition community, it used to be the pyramid, it's evolved, and now it's the choose my plate, which looks very familiar, and it is pretty much the exact easy training day plate. So half of our plate, fruits or vegetables, 1/4 of the plate grains, and 1/4 of the plate protein, and then some dairy. So that's the same as an easy day of training, which makes perfect sense because, maybe we do 30 to an hour of exercise, but it's not like that exercise is keeping us from making a national team. We're just doing that for general health and enjoyment. So pretty much all of your meals can be based on this my plate, where it's half the fruits and vegetables, a quarter grains, a quarter protein, and then having dairy as you please. And if you are training for anything, then you do follow the moderate day, harder day. If you have a child who's an athlete at school, keeping in mind that they need more carbohydrates as their training sessions increase in length and intensity. And and then also athletes, since they're training so much more hours of the day, they might have 2 hard day training plates and a hard day, like in snacks. So our snacks we aim to have them as balanced, so that carb and protein versus the snacks we'll see in a little bit for an athlete might be a little bit different. Okay, right here. So nutrient timing. So this is a huge topic for athletes, and this really separates, once they get that foundation done, the nutrient timing really sets apart different athletes because they're refueling and recovering from training sessions because they're continuously training. We really need to focus on the recovery so that next training session is actually getting better after we break down our body. So we regrow and those muscles get even stronger. So this is really specific to athletes that may not really matter too much to us who are just working our jobs and not, training for a specific event. So 3 to 4 hours before a training session, I'm going to recommend a mostly carb-based meal. So if it is a biathlete, again, just to use some example, that would be like a hard training day plate. So half the plate carb, quarter protein, quarter veggie. So we want to have a moderate amount of protein. We don't want to have too much fat. And that's not because there's anything wrong with fat. It's just fats are harder to digest. So we don't want we want that food to go through our system and give us the energy we need. We don't want to have a lot of food sitting around in our stomach, because if anyone's, ate a big meal and then gone to work out, you don't feel the best. But I do always suggest for athletes in the off season, try it out. If you want to eat a lasagna 2 hours before a training session and see, does my body break that down fast enough? Go for it. And your body might break that down faster than someone else's. But it also is a nice experiment to see, like, hey, that does not work for me. But like the turkey sandwich is a great fuel for me, or like yogurt, granola, berries. Those are all easier for me to digest. I feel better during my session. Then 30 to 60 minutes before a training session, we want to have a carb-rich snack. So again, those easy, quick energy carbs is what we're looking for. So like in these images, it's like a piece of toast with jelly. So that's a carb with the bread, and it's a white bread. So it's, as soon as it touches the mouth, it's going to start that breakdown process. And the cereal with milk, there's a little bit of protein there, a little bit of fat, but it's going to be a pretty easy to digest meal. And then during training or right before, again, Scratch Labs is just a product that I use, but any sort of gummy, athletes really like Welch's snacks. Any sort of fruit snack is very popular in the athletic community. Some sort of sport drink, bananas, fruit, any sort of fruit, applesauces are huge. So anything that's easy to digest during a training session, again, because your blood is not in your stomach helping break down, it's in your limbs helping you perform whatever activity you're doing. So we want to make it easy for your body to just digest, starting in the mouth, and not causing too much discomfort in the body, but also giving you the energy that you need. And then after training, again, we want to focus on protein. So within 30 to 60 minutes after exercise, we want to have protein as a focus during that snack, or if you back your training up to a meal. So, and then also carbohydrates, because that will replenish the glycogen stores that we use during that session. So the reason why we want all those carbs before the session is because we're going to use them for energy, and now we want to replace them. So the next session we have, there's enough carbs in there to help us get through. So dietary supplements, we also differ here, but we don't have to. I choose to take NSF certified supplements, but back to the supplements for athletes, this is really, really, really important for athletes. We do not want athletes taking supplements that are, purchased at Marshall's, or off an influencer on the internet. We want third-party tested supplements because we don't want them taking anything that the WADA would prohibit. So a lot of times athletes don't even know that they're taking something that is on the banned list. So that's why we push all athletes, everything has to be certified, hopefully by NSF or Informed Sport. And then supplements for everyone, they really shouldn't be instead of a diet, or like instead of a food in your diet, it should really be in supplement of the diet. So if you have a food allergy, you have a really challenging schedule, you have the blood work that indicates I'm low in vitamin D, that's when we take a supplement. And you work with a professional or you talk to your doctor before you start taking a supplement, especially in the athletic community, because we don't want people overdoing it, because too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Like I said earlier with the fat soluble vitamins, some of these vitamins can have an upper limit that can be really harmful for our body. And then just like to say this, sometimes the claims on supplements are pretty wild. And if they sound too good to be true, I bet they are. So be skeptical on supplements, because athletes and just general people, you can get into like a sticky situation when you're taking a supplement. Okay, so now some nutrition mistakes that I see a lot with athletes and just general population. So skipping meals or going too long without eating. For an athlete, that means too low energy, not performing well, overeating later, but all those things also happen to the general population. So like if you're feeling like that 2 o'clock, you skipped lunch, 2 o'clock, you're really zonked and you're not making as much, you're not doing the workout as efficiently as you could, it is probably related to low energy in your body. So planning ahead, I can't suggest this enough, is having a plan for your meals. Nobody's really following you around, encouraging you to eat, unless you have a dietitian that really follows you around and encourages you to eat. But you need to advocate for yourself, plan ahead. If you're the person in the family that does this for everyone, batch cook meals. Use Sundays as like the crock pot Sundays. My husband and his roommates used to do is crock pot Sundays, and then have food for the week. Set reminders on your phone. I know my mom's on this call, and I used to always tell her, set a reminder, because she just forgets to eat. She gets busy. She's helping my grandma. She's picking my sister's child up from daycare. Just like life happens and you miss a meal period, you don't even realize it's been 6 hours since your last meal. Put a reminder on your phone. Have easy to access foods with you. If you're in the car a lot, putting a lot of snacks in the car that are shelf stable. That's why it says high protein snacks, because those are harder to find on the road. So making sure you have nuts. If you have a refrigerator, Greek yogurt, cheese sticks, or just some sort of cheese, protein bars, boiled eggs, if you don't care about the people around you. So if you're skipping meals because of time restriction, you don't feel like you have enough time, try like a Greek smoothie. Like that doesn't take that much time. It takes me under 5 minutes to make a smoothie. And it can have the fruits and vegetables that we need, the protein and a carb, and a fat. So add some chia seeds in there. And then also there's so many meal services around these days. Now that I'm expecting, I'm thinking about like, okay, I'm not going to be able to cook as much. So I'm thinking of all these different meal services. And right now there's a plethora of options out there. Over-reliance on convenience foods. So a lot of athletes, because they're busy, they don't plan ahead, and they're stuck with eating out of a gas station. We have Stewart's up here. A lot of people go to Stewart's for their meals. So again, my suggestion, there's nothing wrong with doing that every now and then, but if it's a majority of your diet, you're probably going to be lacking in some of the major nutrients, and you might be more susceptible to illness, poorer recovery, impacts in your sleep, maybe too much sodium, not enough hydration. There's a lot of reasons. So choosing minimally processed snacks, so having like nut butters, beef jerky, that's a a quality brand, fruit around. The more whole foods you have around, the more likely you're going to eat them. And then looking at ingredient lists. So there's like that famous quote, so don't eat anything your great grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. And that's a really helpful thing when you're food shopping. So just think, flip the label over, look, is this too much? And then again, plan ahead. Mismatched portions. This happens a lot with the athletic community. So again, like the athletes, they really love protein. So these are just 2 plates that I made. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing, but so when we overeat too much protein, it just means that we're missing out on something. So like these 2 plates are missing carbohydrates. So for anyone, we want more carbohydrates or a source of carbohydrate within that meal. And then again, if you're just missing the carbohydrate or protein, you're going to be, missing the energy. Your muscles aren't going to recover well. You're going to have cravings. So what to do with mismatched portions is to use the plate method, try to balance your meals, have a carb, protein, and a fat. Fruits and vegetables, always great. And on days you're doing more training, add more carbohydrates. And then some mindful eating techniques is eating slower. So it takes 20 minutes for your body to even recognize that you put food into it. So if you're a fast eater, slow down. Try to remove some distractions during the meal. So I hope people were eating during this call and not feeling too distracted, because it is like a lunchtime if you're on the East Coast. But it takes 20 minutes, so slow down. Chew your food. Eat off a plate or a bowl instead of out of the bag, because that will really give you like a concept of how much you're actually consuming. And if you're feeling really hungry all the time, maybe you need more fiber in your diet or more fats to help you feel more full or more satisfied. And then dehydration, we already went over this. So this is a very common mistake that I see. So the problem is you feel fatigue, headaches, poor concentration, nausea. Your skin might be dry, your lips are cracked. Those are all signs of dehydration. So some tools you can do. I like this picture of the water bottles in the drawer. I feel like every convention I go to, I get a water bottle, or every giveaway is a water bottle. And so we have so many, but we just don't take them with us. So bring your water bottle with you, or keep one in each area that you're frequently in during the day. If you really don't like water, again, try to make it more fun. You can use bubbly water, add some fruit, use the drip drop every now and then if you really missed out on your hydration. Eat hydrating foods. And then following fad diets. Athletes also fall into this trap because they're human. And the media is really influential. So this example, I like, not to throw my husband under the bus, but he tried the keto diet because he was doing a group activity, like a group roommate challenge, because they were all trying to get into better shape. But he also is an avid bike rider. So he cut out carbohydrates, and he went on a long bike ride, and he actually felt this feeling of like no more energy. He bonked is what we call it. And he had to get off his bike and get a ride home, which is very unlike him because he is extremely athletic and into sport. So, but he physically felt, I cannot go any further. And that is the feeling of bonking. So when you cut out a food group, there's going to be a repercussion down the line. So there's, as a dietitian, and I'm sure all the other dietitians would agree with this, there's no need to eliminate any food types from your diet unless you are allergic. So that's the only exception. But there's no reason to eliminate a type of food, because we need this variety of foods to support our gut health and also give us the energy that we need. So we want to prioritize quality of food over restriction. We want to have sustainable habits. So making a small change over time will make a bigger difference than doing something really quick for a wedding that you have in 2 weeks. So making sure that we're setting some long-term goals. And if you're confused, seek out some advice. Like I'm available if you have a quick question, but a lot of registered dietitians are now available through your insurance. So I know that's a great option. I've used them through my insurance and I found it really helpful, even though like I'm a dietitian myself. It's nice to have someone else to just spitball different ideas with.
Maggie, I think that's such a great place to maybe transition to some Q&A if that's all right, just for the sake of time, because we had a ton of questions come in.
Okay.
So yeah, I think this was such great information from both like just personal experience and these like practical tips. And I'm glad that so many people chimed in with questions. So I want to start with one that both Kim and Jesse asked around exercising under fasted conditions. And so, you know, like sometimes the reality is you exercise in the morning before you eat anything. What are your thoughts on that? And then sort of related to that is thoughts around like intermittent fasting and whether or not you feel like that works with the athletes you work with or just with a recreational exerciser.
Yeah, I like my personal and like what I've seen with the athletes is they're not getting as much out of that exercise or that session as they could if they had fuel. If it happens because you slept in, your training starts, you know, it's not, I would never say don't go to training. You know, it's if this is your job, that has to be a priority. But I would prefer if you had a plan and you got up a little earlier, you digested your food, you had that carb in your body prior to the session. So I would encourage non-fasted exercise, even though there is some research out there that is supporting of it. But just for long-term athletic performance, I would suggest eating and getting up earlier to have the energy that you need throughout the day. And also intermittent fasting. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be eating at midnight, you know, getting up and having another meal during the day, unless you had a really crazy day and you really didn't get enough food in, then that might be a time that you're eating up until bedtime. So like my concept with the intermittent fasting, if it works for you, but you're able to utilize the hours of eating and getting all the things you need in, that's one thing. But if you're like, I stop eating at 6 p.m. because I want a 18-hour fast, but I'm skipping dinner, I am not in favor of that because we need all that base layer to get the nutrients we need. But I would say 2 hours before bed is a good amount of time to kind of tone down or like have your last meal of the day, let your body digest, and then overnight you're recovering and you're letting your body like kind of slow down. Jess, would you agree?
Yeah, I think those are great tips. I say a lot of the same things. So a couple questions came in from both Jennifer and Skylar around hydration. And so Jennifer is asking around like caffeine and how that fits in, and, you know, is green tea better than coffee? And then Skylar was asking around like electrolytes and if there's, you know, anything particular that you'd recommend with electrolytes being added into hydration.
So the caffeine is, so in the athletic group, caffeine is really important. Actually, it's a stimulant, so it really helps you perform maybe a little bit more explosion during that training session. So caffeine is a part of the athletic community. So hydrating and caffeine, I would say I wouldn't use the coffee as my hydrating fluid, if that kind of answers that. But oh, and if a green tea is better, whatever your preference is. Green tea has a lot of health benefits, but if you hate green tea, I wouldn't be like, now it's time to switch to green tea. So it's kind of based on what your preferences are. I like coffee, but I also like tea. But you know, that's a preference, and I wouldn't say one's better than the other. If you're looking for a certain amount of caffeine, like you could look at the label and make sure you're getting enough before the training session so you get that explosion stimulant effect. But again, turning that down, like not having caffeine after maybe 2 p.m. so it doesn't impact your sleep, because that might set you off on a bad cycle, which is very common in the athletic community, especially with performing a lot of times based on TV time. So it impacts sleep. And then the hydration, electrolytes are great. Like if you are a heavy sweater, if you are someone who wants to weigh themselves before and after a training session, I don't suggest that for people just because I don't want people getting on the scale more than they need to. But if you are interested in knowing how much am I losing, weighing yourself before and after a session to see, am I a heavy sweater? Then you might need an electrolyte. Or if you see like saltiness on you, like a white substance after a training session, that's usually salt. So you might need to have an electrolyte. Or if you're feeling really crampy or your pee is really clear and you're drinking a lot, you might need an electrolyte. So it's not a bad option. And there's some really nice ones on the market. When you're looking at one, you want something, if you're a heavy sweater, like above 300 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah, great. And there's so many options, like you said. So just thinking about like your experience working with athletes, Angelique wants to know, like, how do you manage nutrition plans for athletes if they have some kind of like underlying condition, like maybe diabetes or hyperthyroidism or something else in addition to the demands of their exercise?
So being a registered dietitian, all of us have to go through a licensing program where we get 1,600 hours of supervised practice in different fields of nutrition. So I did my practice at the College of St. Elizabeth, which is in New Jersey. So you get a background in diabetes, renal failure, counseling, inpatient, outpatient, just general hospital use. So you have a huge range of experience that you know how to work with. So we treat the athlete first with their illness or their medical conditions. And we also collaborate I'm very intertwined with our sports medicine team. So like even today I had a meeting with sports medicine. So I know if there's a diabetic type 1 coming in, we're going to talk about that and we're going to talk about their plan. They might have an outside dietitian, so I might coordinate with them who has more experience with the type 1s. But I feel confident enough to have a general conversation with that person. So it's a lot of coordinating with an interdisciplinary team, but also treating the athlete with the illness and making sure we're listening to the athlete because they know their bodies more than I would know. And then being accommodating. So like a type 1, having fuel sources around for them so they can take it with them, having options available would be definitely something that I make a priority.
Yeah, great. It's so good to hear that like interdisciplinary collaboration with the whole team. Isabel had a question about the supplements and if there's a specific brand that you tend to lean towards that has that third-party testing.
Yeah, there's a bunch out there, and I could probably, if I get the list of people who came to this call, I can kind of come up with that. Or you can go to the WADA website and it will list out all the supplement companies that are third-party tested. But like just off the top of my head, I really like Thorne. Thorne's a great brand. A lot of the teams here are sponsored by USANA, which sometimes isn't as like not all of their products are tested, so you have to be mindful. But most of them are Informed Sport tested. But like a general one, like go to Thorne, that every one of their products is tested. But again, I'll come up with the list.
Yeah, great. Thank you. A question about what someone who's dairy-free can do to get calcium from their diet and, over maybe choosing a supplement because, louder for the people in the back, food first, try to get your needs met through foods and not supplements.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. But a lot of fortified products. So fortified means enriched with. So other dairy-free products like soy milk, that's going to be fortified with, food first, with calcium and vitamin D. Also, I've recently discovered a love for Total cereal. That is has everything in it. Once I got some blood work done and I was realizing my iron was tracking down, I didn't want to take a supplement. So I started food first, did my red meats and stuff. But then I also added in Total cereal and that's made a big difference. But there's a lot of products that are fortified with added dairy-free products that have calcium in them.
Yeah, great. And then a question about, if you have an athlete who's maybe in, recovering from an injury or just has been less physically active for a short time, does their digestion change as they come back to intense training? Is there anything that you would do differently from a nutrition standpoint if they're in that transition place?
Actually, like a lot of the times I see with athletes that are injured. So every athlete that gets injured in the LP area gets a consult with me. So as they're transitioning out of sport and then back in, we kind of go over that transitional period. And a lot of times athletes really reduce their calorie intake during an injury, which is not what I want, because their body is searching for fuel to recover from that injury. So hopefully they're not changing their diet too much during that injury time. But yeah, the transition back, or if they're just starting it, a lot of people are like, oh, when I eat during an endurance exercise, my stomach hurts. So like that is a very common thing. My idea is to transition them into it, never going like straight into the goos during a race week. Like that's not a common thing. It would be practice your eating like it's a training session. So slowly introducing foods so they can practice during a non-high stress time. So during the off season, essentially. And then there's some easier, lower glycemic foods to add in that we would go over.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So 2 really quick final questions. What was your favorite memory from the Paris Olympics?
Okay. That was the easy one. This is not very Team USA, but I went to the rowing, the finals for the women's 8, and I got to see Hattie Taylor. There was a picture of up there. So Hattie Taylor was a sophomore when I was captain of the team. So she was one of the younger girls on the team at the time. And now she's a 2-time Olympian. She won a bronze medal. I waited for her after the event and got to like spend a little bit of time with her, which was like, at the time I didn't know I was pregnant, but I was like crying in the stands, cheering for Great Britain, wearing all Team USA, because I always say like, wear red, white, and blue, but bleed orange. So I was just that was the best highlight of the games for me.
Love it. And then last question, tell us a little bit about the picture in the back.
Okay, so right now we have world championships happening in a few days for bobsled skeleton. So this is a skeleton athlete. Her name's Katie Eulander. And so that's just her helmet. But skeleton is the sport where you run with a sled and you dive onto it with your stomach. So then you're going down a track, and they can hit up to over 70 miles per hour. So this is an intense, thrill-seeking sport. But she is our probably most decorated skeleton athlete. She's been to 4 games. She's hoping to go to her 5th. So
awesome.
Go,
That's
Katie.
So cool. Well, thanks again, Maggie, for sharing all your advice and insight with us and taking time out of what you do with all the athletes to spend with us. So thanks again, and thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you all again soon.